So let's start with this, because you weren't always like self-employed or running your own
Right.
business, right? And tell me what made you decide that you needed to do that.
Circumstances.
Mhm.
2008 came along. The startup that I was working with ran out of money. And all of a sudden, I'm unemployed. I've got a stay-at-home husband taking care of 2 kids. And there are no jobs in 2008. Everything was exploding. Yes.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, all right, I got to do this. And I started doing some consulting work. I basically said, okay, it's Carlton PR and marketing. Woo! Yeah. Like overnight, you know.
Yes.
And social media was young. And I said, this social media thing is going to be huge someday. And it's going to really overtake what we're doing with public relations, which is where I was focused at the time. So at the time, I was on the board of the Charles River Museum of Industry and Innovation in Waltham. Lots of these brick walls everywhere, the old mill buildings. And I'd been on the board for many years, and during that startup phase, I'd been a bad board member. So bad board member. Really bad board member.
Why do you say that?
I missed meetings. I wasn't contributing. I was so busy with the startup.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to do these things called innovation days, and they would bring in typewriters and printing presses and say, look, innovation of yesteryear. And I'm like, that's cool, but what if we added new products and showed people new products and what people are doing locally? There's so many interesting startups, so many interesting new products. And so I started Innovation Nights.
Okay.
And that first event, I tweeted out, let's hold a product launch party at the museum. And 10 companies signed up, and 200 people showed up, all ready to tweet and blog and post video and pictures. And
You just started and you got 200 people to show up.
Yep.
That's impressive.
Well, tweeting.
What?
Tweeting was cool,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there were these things called tweet ups.
Oh yes.
And you would have a party and you would tweet about it and all these people would show up.
So what now? Now you've got this. You've got these people that showed up, and you get this going. And
10 companies got all kinds of visibility that night.
That's great.
And those 10 companies would go on. I mean, the normal attrition of startups and small companies, but some of them would go on to be really successful.
That's awesome.
And everybody, as they walked out the door, said, okay, see you next month. And I'm like, oh, no, this is a one-time thing. Next week is our 10-year anniversary, event number 121.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and it just kept rolling along.
Mm-hmm. So she's still doing that, folks. Check it out.
Well, now I have a team. There are people.
Right.
Kristen Navini runs Innovation Nights like 99.9% now. I show up once a month. She hands me a script, and I know what I'm doing.
So let me ask you this. So now you were in a situation. You're the breadwinner. You kid 2 teenage boys, and now you start this business. So then what? I mean, it was a challenge, right?
Oh God, as scary as it all get out.
Right, and you just did something and put it out there, and 200 people showed up. That doesn't happen to everybody. So what?
I think the timing though is key.
You do?
Absolutely.
Okay.
People were scared. People didn't have jobs.
2008 was scary.
Oh man, it was a crazy time.
Gas was going up, and nobody had any money because they didn't have jobs.
Nobody
it
had
was
jobs.
Scary.
And there
Banks
were no jobs to be
imploding.
had.
Remember, too big to fail. It was like, what are we in a depression? Is this going to be the next? Yeah.
The Great Recession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the timing was key. People needed to be together.
Mm-hmm.
People, were all figuring this stuff out. There were a lot of people during that time who were figuring out social media.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of them. It gave me a great big giant sandbox to play in and experiment. So I didn't have to experiment on clients. That was good.
Yeah.
They frown on that.
Yeah. They kind of don't like. We're not your guinea pigs.
We're not your guinea pigs.
So let's look at today with what you learned from that, And what do you impart now?
Yeah, so I mean, 10 years of Innovation Nights, it really is all about community building. And we've built an amazing supportive community around Innovation Nights. And about 4 years ago, because of Innovation Nights, I got invited to all these events all the time. You know, I'm packing a lot of social media power on my phone. You know, I've got followers for Innovation Nights, I've got followers for my day business, Carlton PR Marketing, and I've got followers for me. And going to these events, it was just like the all male, all pale, all stale panels constantly. It was the same people over and over again. And you get tired of hearing the same stories and the same perspective. And so I started kind of poking some of the local event managers like, hey, let's not see another all-male panel. Let me introduce Jane. Let me introduce Shirley. You know, it's like different names, different people, different perspectives. And it quickly became apparent this is a full-time job. So because I created a website for Innovation Nights, I'm like, well, we can do the same thing and let them connect. And I knew people had created lists. You know, they would go to an event, they would see all guys on stage, and they was like, let me make a list, and I'll put it up on Google, and I'm done, you know, problem solved. Problem is not solved. You have to keep beating the drum. You have to keep marketing the women speakers. You have to encourage women speakers to get out there, because there are real reasons why there aren't as many women on stage. Number one, event managers will go out and they'll pick somebody they've seen speak. They've seen them on stage already, which perpetuates the same voices. Women will also turn down about half of the invitations they get. Number one, we're more likely to work part-time. It's harder to get out of the office when you're only working 2 or 3 days a week. Number two, we're more likely to work for smaller companies. Those companies get fewer invitations, but also they don't have the backstop to have somebody out of the office for a day or two, or to support all the travel that comes about from speaking engagements. You know, sending somebody to a conference cross-country is expensive. And then women are still more likely to be responsible for home and family and kids. And so, you know, it's harder to be the keynote when you got to drop somebody off at the bus stop at 8 a.m. You know, no breakfast keynote if I've got to get somebody on the bus. So also, when women are out there, they become the female face for something specific. At one point, I swear there were only 5 female entrepreneurs in Boston if you looked at who was on stage.
Up there.
You know, it's like, love these women, you know, Jules and Diana and Bettina Hines and Gail, you know, it's like the same women over and over again because they had gotten on the circuit. They were known, so they kept getting invited over and over again. And also, they're fabulous. They do an amazing job. So they're a known quantity, so they keep getting invited. They're busy. You know, they probably have to turn down a ton of stuff because they're already booked somewhere.
But they're the go-to people, and nobody goes in any further.
So you have to get more people known. So I crowdfunded enough to buy myself some developers to create innovationwomen.com.
Okay, wow.
So that's the newer thing.
In case you people aren't keeping count, I think I've heard 3 businesses that this woman has
Yeah,
started so
3.
far. Okay, fine. So you know what? So then, just to finish up, and you've done a lot, you've come a long way. What is the biggest takeaway of what you've been through and what you found that more women should know, or that would help them?
You know, I mean, I realize this is probably a word that's out there a bit, but persistence. You got to keep on doing. You know, Innovation Nights, we had 200 people that first night, but there were also times when it dipped and you were like, oh, this is over. No, it's just this thing, you know, and now we got to keep going. You know, we had 1,000 people show up at the 100th event at the Museum of Science. And those people came through what I swear was a monsoon. and the green line was down, and all of this stuff happened to keep people away, and yet people still came.
Showed up. Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. I'm picking up a lot from this because I have those days and I'm like, no, I need more.
It's
people.
dead, it's dying.
Yeah,
No, and that's not. You need you need to keep doing it.
Keep going.
Keep doing it.
Yeah.
We do weekly newsletters for both Innovation Nights and Innovation Women. And, those weekly touches for all of our people are super important.
Big difference. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, really appreciate this. And we'll make sure that everybody can contact you with all the information. It's Bobbie Carlton.